Washoe County Library System welcomes you to a wonderful monthly history series that delves into fascinating Nevada topics with local experts. The Nevada Historical Society presents High Noon with Neal Cobb. Due to an unforeseen conflict, today's scheduled program will be replaced by another very interesting topic, an exploration of Bartley Ranch, featuring a screening of a Home is Nevada episode with Neal Cobb. Learn about the history of the buildings moved from Bartley Ranch according to those responsible for moving them. Our local experts on this topic are Neal Cobb and Loren Jahn. My name is Amy, and I am very happy to be hosting today. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Sherry Hayes-Sorn.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We're so sorry our speaker had a conflict at the last moment, but we have a great program scheduled for you today that maybe you don't know much about. So it will be a good one. So I hope you will stay tuned and enjoy the program. So as always, we so appreciate the partnership with the Washoe County Library System to make our High Noon event available by virtual programming. And it's just been a really nice partnership with the library over the years. And it really allows people who aren't able to attend to be able to watch this program at any time. So we really appreciate that. But without further ado, let me introduce our host, Neal Cobb, who has been a longtime supporter here with the Nevada Historical Society and is one of our honorary curators. So without further ado, let me introduce Neal Cobb. Hey, Neal.
Thanks, Sherry. Very much appreciate the info. What we have today is one of 9 episodes that were recorded on Home Needs Nevada, which the person that was funding it turned out to not have the money and bounced a check to KOLO. So these have never hit the airways before. This is one that we filmed out at the Bartley Ranch, and it has to do with 3 very energetic gentlemen, Jack Hirsch, Jack Sutton, and the gentleman that's sitting next to me now who will answer questions about things after the program airs. And this is Loren Jahn. So we wanted to go ahead and get into the success of, after a long and a very public battle to make this all possible. And I'm talking about all of the buildings that are going to be shown in this program. So we want to go ahead and kick this off and let you enjoy the program. This is 2 of the 3 speakers that we had, Jack Hirsch and Loren Jahn. And this is with Dick Stoddard. He's interviewing Jack, and of course I picked this guy next to me because he is so accommodating. So at this time, we'd like to show the Bartley Ranch, recorded in 2015.
Welcome to Home is Nevada. I'm Dick Stoddard. I'll be your host today, and we are going to explore some incredible old buildings out at the Bartley Ranch area. You're going to love it. We're going to see items that go back over 100 years old, including the buildings themselves. Now, my co-host, Neal Cobb, and myself are going to have a lot of fun in the next half hour. We're going to take a look at what was going on a long time ago. Say, for example, out at the Bartley Ranch. They have moved some old buildings here to the Bartley Ranch, and we're going to explore in the next half hour and see what's inside these buildings. Our tour guides, as I call them, will be Loren Jahn and Jack Hirsch. Let's take a look. And welcome back to Home is Nevada. Joining me today, Jack Hirsch, and I understand you're part of an organization called Truckee Meadows Tomorrow, correct?
Wrong. It's Truckee Meadows Remembered.
Well, I was close. Okay. Now, you've moved some buildings from across town over here to the Bartley Ranch area. How many years ago did you do that?
We did 2002, May 2002. They arrived here at Bartley Ranch Park.
And basically what you did is save them, right?
We did. They were going to be torn down. These buildings were originally from the Joe Ferretto Ranch on South Virginia. That location you might recognize as where Ethan Allen Furniture Store parking lot and Easy Boy Furniture Stores
Absolutely.
are now. That was a historic ranch that dated back to the Comstock Lode era. The history of that ranch started out Mormon settlers in the late 1850s, and then the Dalton family, and then the Joe Ferretto family bought that ranch. They grew produce and sold the produce up at the Comstock Lode, the Virginia City market during the late 1800s, 1860s to 1890s primarily. That then became a working ranch. The Ferrettos grew a lot of alfalfa hay. They had many outbuildings. There was a large timber frame barn. There were a couple of house structures on that property. In the late 1990s, Boomtown Casino picked up these buildings and moved them to Boomtown and had them on display as a cultural, like a fun Old West setting for their clients. They'd have barbecues out there for the truckers, and then they expanded and they pushed these buildings out into a field, and they were doing nothing about them. And then Loren Jahn actually kept a dialogue with the Boomtown folks and persuaded them not to tear the buildings down.
Boy, that's a good thing.
Oh, that was a great thing that he did. And I came along because I was photographing old historic ranch structures in the 1990s, the late 1990s here in Reno. I'm a native Renoite, and I saw the growth and the loss of the ranching properties.
True.
So I started photographing all of these structures, and that's when I met Loren, and we started brainstorming, and we approached the Washoe County Parks system and suggested that if we did the fundraising, that we move these little buildings to the site here and put them on display as a ranch, a cultural ranch, historical ranch heritage display.
Congratulations on what you accomplished.
Thank you. It was actually a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely it was. Now, the building I'm looking at here, this kind of reminds me of a garage into the fact I'm looking at something parked in here.
Yes.
What is that?
First, starting with the building, we think this building is about 1910 construction. Also, the buggy is about 1905. It's a spindle seat runabout. We think the model is Studebaker. The badge that marks that is missing, which takes the value of the buggy much lower without that badge. But I know intimately this buggy because it was my mother's. My mother did driving with a Morgan horse as I was growing up as a kid. This buggy ended up in my garage. It was parked in my garage.
Seriously?
And as we were creating this display, I said, Mom, it would be okay if we donated the buggy to the park, and we agreed upon that. And so the buggy has been here on display ever since. And along with the buggy, you can see a lot of nice artifacts, old, cool, rusty things.
Oh, yes.
Have been donated by many, many citizens of the Reno area. When we started creating this project, the word spread, and folks started calling us. And they would call, and we'd go, and we'd pick up things. And so everything that's decorating these buildings are things that we picked up that were donated by just citizens calling us who wanted to donate.
I noticed a lot of old horseshoes down there. Am I looking at some old nails down here? By
nice old nails. And
maybe our photographer here, John, can show us some of these nails. They look like they go way back. They don't look like...
square nails.
Yes, right.
Big workhorse horseshoes. We've got harnesses and... lanterns and pulleys and chains and you name it.
All right, we got time. Let's go down to the next building.
Head on to the bunkhouse.
And you know what people need to know is that if teachers are watching or any groups or organizations, they can call up the Bartley Ranch at 828-6612, and they can schedule a tour of this, right? You'll come out and open up the buildings.
We act as docents, and when they call the park, we will come right out here, and we have led many tours, particularly fourth graders. Fourth grade concentrates on history, and so we've had many fourth grade classes show up, and we open up, and Loren Jahn and I docent, and I'm Jack Hirsch, just to remind you, and we will docent and lead the children through a tour. We've had a very good time, and the most memorable part of that has been the kids, I think, live in a virtual world perhaps, and when they do visit and they see a saddle on a saddle rack and they can touch the saddle, they constantly ask, is this real? Is this real? Is that a real buggy? Is that a real horseshoe?
Sure.
The kids visiting, they have a blast seeing these real artifacts, and they consistently ask, is this real? Is this real? And I'll say, yes, that's real.
Oh, sure.
We interpret these buildings as the way we see them, most likely as they were, and we set up the artifacts to interpret the way the building was. This was the bunkhouse, and I've talked to old timers that knew the Ferretto Ranch, and they said that there was an old guy named Jack, and so we call this Jack's Shack. And so, but we set it up as a bunkhouse, and you can see it's a two bed bunkhouse, and it would have been the living facility for some buckaroos on the ranch, some working guys on the ranch. And so we've decorated it as such, and we have the old stove in the middle.
This is the real deal.
It is the real deal.
Yes.
All of this is
the young people see this on TV, right, in the Western movies.
Yeah.
And this is the
you
really
could film
what
a John Wayne movie here.
Excellent. That is super. Okay, coming up in the next segment, I'll have my sidekick, Neal Cobb. He'll be talking with Loren about what's going on in some more of these outbuildings. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to Home is Nevada. And our good friend here, another one of the participants in moving all of these wonderful buildings from the Bartley Ranch, our good friend, this is Loren Jahn. He's also a local muralist, a wonderful, wonderful artist. And out here at the Bartley Ranch, he's got one of his murals depicting one of those ranches. So tell me all about what you do. Did you just tag along with Jack, or did you actually do something?
Well, that's a great story. Actually, we had met a long time ago when we were kids, and then actually re-met when I was working on the mural right up here at the Wick up there, and that was back in 1999, I believe it was. So we actually reconvened. Jack had moved back from back east and came back out west and rediscovered Nevada all over again, and after a sojourn back east, and we just kind of hit it off right away. We figured, you know, we're kind of in the same...
You have the same interest.
The same
I know
interest in preservation, Nevada heritage, and history, and we just set out to save whatever we could save.
Yeah, the proud history of this state. You want to bring it forward any possible way that you can. And here is living proof. These are the real McCoy. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
So we need to take a look at one of the other buildings. You've got, a blacksmith's shop is next? Or,
yeah,
or
let's take a tour here.
Yeah.
You've seen some of the buildings down the boardwalk.
Yeah, we got a boardwalk working for us.
The bunkhouse, this is a very favored place in the world of ranches. This is where a lot of the cowboy poetry, a lot of the downtime on ranches developed right here in the shade of the evening. So this was kind of a fabled place of American folklore.
Yeah, that was comfortable just sitting there.
Yeah, just the art of storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, cowboys sitting around shooting the bull, telling stories, tales, singing, coming up with the Western cowboy motif.
Enjoying that great clean air.
Yeah. But this building here, this dates back to the 1870s. Originally on the Bartley Ranch, it was called Jack's Cabin.
Jack's Cabin.
Yes.
I see you had a little bit of a sponsorship. Did you have quite a few of those? Is this the Sir Optimus?
We're always open to the idea of adopt a building. So if a certain organization or group would love to participate in preservation, we'll let you adopt one of these buildings here and help out physically.
And this one is sponsored by who?
This one here is actually sponsored by, let's see,
Sir Optimus.
Sir Optimus International of Reno, 1870s.
Yeah, the service clubs have been instrumental in picking up the slack in all kinds of different projects.
Yes.
The Seeing Eye Dogs to sponsoring a bunkhouse. That covers a wide spectrum.
Sometimes people just want to contribute, either monetarily or they want to get their gang out and do something in the community that helps the community. So it's a great program that we, open-armedly accept. It's like, come on out and help out on the ranch.
It did help to have three of you as good friends pull us off.
Yes, Jack Hurst, Jack Sutton, myself, we just kind of hit it off. We're true grit Nevadans, and we just love this place. So.
I like to tease Jack, but I have a huge amount of respect for him and Jack Sutton and yourself.
Well, thank you.
Look at what you've been able to produce.
Yeah.
You tell me a little bit about the problem that you had on the side of this building.
Well, just yesterday, day before yesterday, we had some pretty massive winds, probably close to 80-mile-an-hour winds, whipping through the park. So on my daily walks through the park with our dog Phoebe here, I noticed that sometimes you get some loose corrugated tin or woodwork that just blows off from the wind. You get 80-mile-an-hour winds, things blow off. So part of what we do out here is pound nails, and we even save the old square nails and the old nails that have patina, and we reuse them in patching some of the original siding that goes back to the 1870s.
And a couple of those clapboards had blown off, huh?
Right, a good chunk of them had blown off because they were put back on here using staples, and staples don't hold very well. So we use the real McCoy even in the nails and the fasteners. And what you see on here is the original ox blood patina on the remaining wood.
Just a bit of it's left.
And a lot of that paint or coating at the time was made out of actual ox blood.
Well, of course, here's a necessity.
Oh, yes. Yes, the old outhouse. This was another fabled area on ranches, and they called them outhouses because you had to go out of the house to use them.
Yeah.
It was the best of 19th century plumbing, as
Yes,
it were.
it stands still. Plumbing shouldn't be in the house.
Yes, and this is what they call a two-holer. So you would cozy up to either one of your family or, say, another cowpoke, and you'd have to utilize the two-holer together there, but you always had a Sears and Roebuck catalog, you know, to, you know, kind of, you know, bide the time a bit.
Bide the time. Take care of some other
But
business.
yeah, you know, typically, you know, the outside hoppers that they had for outhouses
What do
were
they
all
say?
over,
You're
you know.
never done till the paperwork's complete.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The lack of ventilation in there, or actually we're looking through a couple of the clapboards, and you do have a bit, but later on with the WPA, they built outhouses in
Right.
Nevada with,
Yeah.
with an improved system. That was one of the ways that they funded themselves.
That was one of the benefits of the FDR administration, was
Yes.
the fly-proof outhouse. And these were specially government-designed outhouses. They cost a little more, but they were government-designed. Actually, you could probably get them for free for the asking, and they would come out and build them on your property. Some came pre-built, and they were supposedly fly-proof and more sanitary than the home-built models that you
home-built
see
ones.
here.
Well,
But,
we're going to move on to the next
All right.
building, and I think I'm going to give that one to our good friend Dick Stoddard.
okay.
Welcome back to Home is Nevada, and we certainly are in a old building here that is definitely all about Nevada. And I'm your host, Dick Stoddard, and I have with me Jack here. And this building looks more like a storage house than anything else.
Well, we have a lot of artifacts.
What's going on in here? You
We have
all
a
say
lot-
you do.
To the ceiling. A
Yes.
lot of artifacts that have been donated by citizens, old ranch artifacts. But this is the chicken coop. And a lot of folks walk up and they go, is that a schoolhouse? Is that a church?
That's why
well,
the chicken
no,
wire.
It's a chicken coop, and the structure, the cupola on the top is the pigeon loft. And in the very pioneer days, they would attract even pigeons to roost in the pigeon loft. No, and they would utilize every resource they could, and they would use the pigeon poop for in the garden to fertilize,
Sure,
and
sure.
they would collect the eggs, and then if the eggs hatched, they would utilize the squab in a
So you
nice
come in here for the
delicacy.
fresh eggs?
Yes, fresh eggs, and then down here we had the chickens, big chicken coop here, and there's some original chicken doors on the outside
I
still.
noticed you've got some saws in here that
Oh,
must
yeah.
go back, what, 60, 80 years
Yeah,
ago?
there's just
Are
some
those
good
big
old
milk
rusty
containers in the back
stuff.
there?
Yeah, some milk cans. Yep. And,
This is amazing.
yeah, the chickens, they would raise the chickens and sell the chickens to Virginia City for the people, citizens, the miners of Virginia City.
And Jack, you know, once again, I think this is amazing that people out there that have an organization or a club, or the teachers, you can bring the classroom out here.
That's right.
You guys will open up these buildings. You all coordinate this through the Bartley Ranch people.
That's right, Bartley
And
Ranch.
people can actually take a look at this and spend some time and see what history's all about.
Yes, we are very happy to share this with school classrooms, teachers,
that's wonderful.
anybody that wants to see some good old Reno, Nevada, Western heritage,
Right.
ranch heritage.
The Bartley Ranch number, once again, is 828-6612. So give them a call during the week, and they'll return your call if you don't get anybody. This is definitely a place that people need to come out and see and spend a day.
That's right.
It's really super. Also coming up here in a few minutes, we're going to be talking about Truckee Meadows Remembered. I've got a little booklet here in my hand, and it's full of a lot of pictures and everything. So explain that to me coming up here in a
This
few
little
minutes.
booklet, I self-published this, my photography and Loren Jahn's artwork. We use this booklet, we sell it at Sundance Bookstore, the Artist Co-op Gallery, the Historical Society of Nevada. It's a little fundraiser. We have an account set up that supports the maintenance of these buildings, and the sales of this book goes directly into that account.
Super.
So buying a book
Right.
Helps this
How much is the
preservation
booklet?
of the $10.
$10. Pictures are
And there's
fabulous.
the story of the history of barns and ranches in Nevada.
It's all
and Reno,
documented.
in the
Yes.
Truckee Meadows. And then there's a story in the very back of the moving and the preservation of these buildings.
All right. Very good. Okay. All right. Once again, we'll be back in a few minutes to close out our show, so don't go away. Well, Neal Cobb, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sure is.
Home is Nevada, and we know that because we're natives.
Well, we both share the same love for Nevada.
We both went to Reno High School.
Yeah, you're out of one class and I'm out of another.
That's
And
right, and you're Dad,
And my class was the best class.
Jerry Cobb, class of 59, 58.
58.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some things we got coming up in the weeks ahead?
Well, the following week, we're going to be over with Dick Dreiling at the Sparks Heritage Museum. And we're going to go through those cars. He dresses as a conductor, and we're going to go inside those Pullman cars and show you how very, very compact and workable they are. And then to follow up on there, we just talked about our high school. Well, we've got an alumni center that sits on the front lawn. And we have some very important people like Raggio that graduated from there, Bill Thornton went to Cal Neva, that goes back to 1868, his family does.
The building was not there when we went to school.
Oh, no, it sure wasn't.
Okay, so that was the video, and I know Neal is going to be coming back so they can begin the conversation before we start taking questions and answers. So, Neal.
Well, I wanted Loren to elaborate on the trials and tribulations, and I say trip, that it took to finally get past the red tape and make this a reality for all of us to enjoy. Loren, tell us what all actually happened to make this possible.
Well, it's interesting, that I'm seeing this program here because we did this way back in 2014, was it?
15.
15? It was so long ago, I don't even remember doing this, but but it's interesting because everybody from the interviewers to the interviewees were natives of Reno, and we're all still here today. But one of the major challenges we had with the Truckee Meadows Remembered project was conveying the idea that if we don't save our heritage in a city, county, state domain, it will go away. And there's nothing worse than having nothing to prove where you've been or anything actually tangible that you can reach out into the future with and prove this is what we actually had. So the whole emphasis, I think, behind TMR was initially to create an awareness with the folks out there that our history is fleeting in this valley. And we have to do our best, and it takes everybody. It takes, city, county, state bureaucracies working together with private folks and private folks that just want to contribute something back to our community for future generations to learn from. So we have been through the gauntlet of, just trying to get these buildings brought back to Reno because they were moved out to Boomtown, and that's where we found them. Abandoned pretty much, and Boomtown was generous enough to donate them. But when somebody goes, we'll donate these barns, but you got to come and get them. So it obviously right away, we got to, jump through some hoops and hurdles. Jack Hirsch did all of the fundraising, and it was almost like crowd fundraising today, where he just asked folks, we got this project, and it's a hot project. We got to get it back to Reno. And we were actually given a timeline to do all this by the county. And the county was going into this going, I don't know, shouldn't these things be torn down? I mean, they look pretty bad. It's like you have to look beyond the rotten roll out there and see the future of what they could be as really educational instruments to young people that can experience that tactile tour of tangible history that you can sense, you can taste, you can smell, you can experience. And that was kind of our main goal, was to save something out of the past and push it forward into the future so people can learn from these things. They're not just old barns that sit out in a field someplace rotting. These are actually things today in the park that are being used for photographs, and they've done a few videos out there. Lawyers are even using these things for backdrops to represent True Grit Nevada. And it's fantastic.
Well, they've had a whole bunch of weddings out there and all kinds of things.
Yes, and people always, when they look at the interpretive area today from the 1867 schoolhouse, which is another great landmark in Bartley Ranch today that we saved way back in the 1990s from oblivion. The barn buildings, people think that they've always been there. And it's like, no, we imported all of this Nevada history back.
Yeah.
So at the point where it almost reached the point of oblivion, where it all went away, we brought it back home. And that's what the whole emphasis of saving Nevada is all about.
Didn't the county fight you as far as, the liabilities are so great, having people possibly get hurt, and the insurance and all the other stuff on there. To my knowledge, working around you there, Bud, is that it was a tough row to go ahead and get everybody aboard, and they fought you to the very end. And now they're beating their chest. They says, look at this wonderful thing we have. And so I think they're a little bit on the hypocritical side, but you guys are the winners. And guess what? That makes us all winners because it's out there for you to enjoy, ask questions, drag somebody that really knows what he's talking about with you. But they'll give you the tours and everything else. I said, but that is there a fact to what I was just saying?
It's always the most difficult part of what we do is trying to convince city, county, state bureaucracies that, and we're from here, you and I are from here. We have a history here. We're just trying to save one shred of our history. And there was such a fantastic story in the state. History is really like an interwoven fabric. It's a patchwork quilt of many, many stories put together. But you take too many of those patchwork pieces away, what are you left with? Something that looks like it was hit by moths, you know? So it's always a challenge to convince the city parks, the county parks, the state parks even, that if we don't bring these back into the public domain where people can enjoy them and experience them,
they're gone.
They're not really, why even save anything at that point? But but that's always a challenge. It is always a challenge to make the authorities on these parks, and each park has a different theme, but Bartley Ranch is really dedicated to the ranch and open spaces.
Well, they got the schoolhouse too.
It's really, where you have a blank canvas to work with. It's like, how do you want to interpret that blank canvas in the future? And what we had at the time were all these disappearing ranches. They were tearing them down and building these ugly condos and apartment blocks that you see them all over town now, know. And a good case in point here was we created a portal for local ranchers to donate a lot of their old horse-drawn equipment. Back in the day when the Balseys were still running their ranch south of town as a cattle ranch, there were 7 hay derricks in the valley, and they were nice enough to donate their hay derrick and set it up at Bartley Ranch as an example of hay derrick. And they even brought in a crane to set up the mast, and they tied it down with guy wires and cables. And that is the last remaining hay derrick in Truckee Meadows today. All the other ones have either been torn down, blown down, or they've rotted away. So it is now a preserve of history in situ in the park that really is not exactly from that location, but it is brought there and culled there to the point where it's now an interpretive tool to teach young people when we still give tours down there in the barnyard or up at the schoolhouse. It's a tangible way for young people to get excited and connect with their history, their own history right here in Nevada, what's left of it. And hopefully it can inspire future generations of historians and conservators and young people that will replace people like me and Neal here, someday down the road, and with the same enthusiasm to just celebrate our history.
Our enthusiasm is big time because we were born and raised here. There's so many people that are in positions of control that have no idea what we're talking about. So I bet you we got some questions from other people, don't we, Sherry?
We do have some questions, but I wanted to ask, you had mentioned that you guys used to give tours, and there still are tours today. So Lauren, are you still part of the docents or volunteers that give the tours, or because it's also part of the park more, how does that work?
Well, we had hoped to create a union between the Washoe County School District to where back in the days when they used to give school field trips, kids could come out on the bus and maybe have an hour's worth of Nevada history taught to them sitting in the over 100-year-old desks at the Huff Acres School, and then just kind of a brief history of local history going back, and then maybe a ranch loop tour on one of the many trails at Bartley, and then break for lunch, and then a tour of the barnyard. And there, it was actually arranged to where the kids they had to listen to what we were kind of describing as just basic ranch life. And there was a fun little test at the end of their session out there, and it could have taken up, the whole day on a field trip back in before COVID, where they actually had to listen to the stories and they had to listen to the history, and then there was a test to see how well they were listening. And then of course we'd always open up to questions and answers, and sometimes the questions that the young people had out there, they were hard to answer. They would really, question the heck out of you. And
third and fourth graders are the toughest.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. And a lot of them, it's like, do you live here? And it's like, no, I just work here. And of course, the subject always comes up of ghosts. It's like, is this place haunted? It's like, think about it. Would you really want to haunt your old school? No.
Loren's got another piece of work that's out there in the main building that the county park people have. There's a large mural up there. What ranch is that?
That is the Longley Capurro Ranch.
And this is the artist that created it. And he's done some wonderful things all around town, at the courthouse, down there in Sparks, where they have the turnaround for the buses and stuff, that whole wall. He's one heck of a fine artist, I'll tell you.
Thank you, Neal.
Well, he helped us with the WCTU fountain, because we had to have a rendering to take around when we were trying to get dollars to restore it and stuff. So he did anything that you wanted. So away we go. Back to Sherry, sorry.
Well, no, somebody did ask, where is the mural located at Bartley Ranch in particular?
Yeah, you can usually see the mural, and if the building isn't open, you can usually knock on the door. One of the rangers may open up there for just the viewing of the mural. It's actually in the building they call the Wick out at the Western Heritage Interpretive Center. And it is in that building, but they come in from the Cold family series, I think going on right now. So you can see this mural. I think that is happening every Saturday night. I think it's still going on. It's still cold out there. But the mural, that was done there again, just me and old Louis Capurro out on that original historic ranch, which really doesn't exist anymore. It's a bunch of warehousing today. They've even chopped down all the cottonwood trees, which go back to the 1860s, and but I noticed at the time the ranch was being redeveloped as an industrial center. So that meant to me all of what I was going to see there as a panorama that I could just photograph, and that was done I think in 1998, 1999, when I did these interviews with Louis Capurro. He was the patriarch of the Capurro family, and he was not born on the ranch, but he had lived his entire life on that ranch. And I spent 3 days with him researching the ranch just by walking around and listening to his stories of how the ranch operated back in the heyday of the 1940s and 50s, even when they were still running it as a cattle and dairy ranch. So from his oral recollections of how great that ranch was at one time, what I was seeing in that point in time, this is 1999, was just a ghost ranch. It was a ghost of its former self, and I could just photograph the color and the remaining barns, which were mostly still intact. And then working off of his stories, we put that mural together as a keepsake of how these Truckee Meadow ranches looked and how colorful and interesting and important they were for not only in the early days, the support of the Comstock, but also just to show us a last glimpse of how the whole valley looked. And now all those places are extinct, and all that life that used to be in those cattle ranches and alfalfa, production places, open fields, are all now developed, and the color of the valley is changed now. So that mural represents one of the pioneer ranches of the Truckee Meadows, and the original land deed was signed by Abraham Lincoln. So that's how far back that ranch goes. But if you go to the same spot today, you will be shocked by the warehousing that has replaced that mural. So,
So if people want to just go to the ranch, can they look in the windows, or do
yes.
the rangers have them open, or is that only during tours? Because somebody asked if they can view the interior of some of the buildings.
Well, if they can catch me out there, I'm always out there walking the trails and the parks, along with many citizens out there safeguarding our, historical heritage that we have out in the park. They are best security, and they keep a watchful eye on everything. So if I could find somebody interested in looking at the buildings, I'll, just do an impromptu open up of the buildings and do my own little tour there. And if they have some family connection, and there's still some of the Ferretto family in the Bay Area that come up occasionally, they just, always plan on getting together and seeing the what's left of their old ranch, and it's wonderful to meet those first and second, third generation folks that just want to come back and experience a little bit of the Truckee Meadows remembered. And that was, kind of the idea behind our namesake. So. But
Nice.
but yeah, we keep the buildings open for the various programs in the summertime. From bluegrass, they have bluegrass in the summertime. Various local performers that perform out there in the grassy knoll area next to the buildings. So it's a great place to open up the buildings in the heat of summer when it's really hot. And people now see our Chisholm ice cream wagon, which goes back to 1905. And they're wondering, it's like, can we get some Chisholm ice cream? And it's like, are you kidding me? You want to eat some antique ice cream, huh? Okay. But still, ice cream for 5 cents, it just kind of blows people's minds, especially the kids. Because I always tell the kids, what can you buy for 5 cents today? So there's this very fun interaction I have, at least, when I open up the buildings and get to show people how life used to be in the last century or the century before the last century, and they're always amazed. And it doesn't matter where you are from, any place in the United States. People have fond memories of growing up, either during the Great Depression or even before that time, if they're old enough. And I love to hear their stories and how what we've preserved here in Reno, Nevada, Bartley Ranch, relates to what they experienced in some other part of the country. It's really a celebration of antique America. And we've got a nice little thing going on at Bartley where all you have to do is just walk the trails, see the architecture of the old buildings. And if you can catch me on the right day, I'll give you a personal tour even. And kids and folks that remember that world are so pleased that we have that opportunity in a public domain to experience history. That's very tactile, and it's tangible. You can touch it. You can touch it and experience it. And I can't think of too many places other than the Nevada State Railroad Museum, where I'm engineer out there, where you can actually ride the steam train, the Virginia and Truckee Railroad, into the past.
Yes.
I mean, if you missed your chance up to 1950 to ride the V&T, come out there this summer and you can ride the same equipment, but into the past.
Yeah, that's what's interesting. It's those glimpses, and you guys did such a great job, and it's wonderful how, a small group of people can make a difference, to help preserve the history. So do you guys still sell the book, Truckee Meadows Remembers, or
Uh-huh.
is that book still available? Okay.
Yep, we usually keep copies in Jack's cabin, and that is kind of a nice little keepsake of the old ranches we used to have. Sadly, most of them are gone today, so it's a pure keepsake of what we had when Jack Hirsch wrote that book. And a lot of folks, that are into barn heritage and barn architecture of the ranches, they seek out little tidbits like this, little local productions that I think it's in its seventh or eighth printing now, but we still keep copies of it in the bunkhouse for $10 a piece, and all the monies we raise from even the book sales go right back into the old buildings.
Could they by chance carry those up at the Historical Society?
I think you can find them at some local bookstores even from time to
I
time.
think we used to. I don't think we have them anymore,
Sure,
but
they're up at the Historical Society's bookstore these days. But
yeah. If not, we should definitely get that put back into our bookstore for sure.
yeah, you still have a bookstore up there, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Okay,
we do.
great.
Yeah, no, this is wonderful. There is a question, but it's associated with your, at the very end of the video talking about upcoming episodes. Was that referring to Eva in Tonopah? Is that
Eva
an episode?
Adams.
Oh,
Because
Eva Adams with the
we have
mint.
material over at the Alumni Center that's right in the front
Oh.
lawn of Reno High
Okay.
School. And of course, she was a very special Nevadan at a key time, and her story is just wonderful. And if you wanted, go ahead and dig into it, Google it up, or go over a Saturday morning to the Alumni Center and take a look, and you can read for yourself. But she
Nice.
was the
Okay.
first female treasurer of the United States.
Yep.
And who she was associated with and who appointed her is a real good story. It includes
Absolutely.
JFK and yeah.
Loren, do you want to briefly tell people the latest project that yourself and, of course, members of HARPS are trying to help preserve the oldest building here in Reno?
Yes, this is very exciting. We have recently discovered the oldest house in Reno dating back to 1868. And it is in the downtown redevelopment area of the old West End off of West Street. So thanks to the research of Alicia Barber and her digging into the old records, we have actual documentation proving that this property was part of the initial city plot map designed way back by the Central Pacific in 1868 for the new town site of Reno.
May 9th.
So
Yeah,
that
and
was
we
in
have that.
June,
We
I
have that
believe.
map in our collection. So
Was that? No, that was in May. But in June, this he was a stone and brick mason, bought a chunk of property on West Street, which was really designed as the residential area of the early Reno.
Yeah.
Reno's nucleus was really centered around the railroad. It was Commercial Row and Plaza Street. So the outskirting areas or blocks around that commercial zone were really slated for residences. So West Street was the westernmost block on the early plot map. And thanks to Dr. Barber's research, she found actual information leading us to believe that this land was purchased by a Benham, who was a brick mason, stonemason, builder. And usually if you bought a chunk of land in early Reno from that time period, there were some structures here dating back to the Countryman brothers, who established a ditch even to the little town site of Auburn. And so they were here first. And then, of course, you had Fuller and Myron Lake that came along with their bridge concept there, which was very profitable for them. But as Reno grew, you had these builders that came to Reno and they were in the catbird seat when it came to building this town. So Benham, he worked not only to create this structure, which is still there on West Street,
Yeah.
and that required clearing the land, taking the ambient rocks, and there's even evidence of cut boulders and granite. And he glued these things together as a very simple foundation, and he built a cabin on top of this foundation. And then shortly thereafter, he builds a cellar, and if you ever dug in the earth of Reno, Nevada, you're going to hit a rock
Oh,
with
yeah.
shovel one, shovel two, another rock. We got a lot of rocks. So what are you going to do with all those rocks? You're going to use that for your foundation material.
Oh, fencing.
So this house is a wonderful example of a house that was built as a cabin by a builder and turned into a cottage by the 1870s. And by the 1880s, 1890s, was finished out into a house. And it wasn't changed since the turn of the century. So it's a fossil. It's a beautiful structure showing the building on and building on until you get a house out of it. And this includes the porches and garage. And so we
Yeah.
got to save this
Yeah.
house.
Considering the time period on it, that would match what you've got out at the Bartley Ranch, wouldn't it?
Well, see, that's the thing that most people don't understand is the ranches predate the city of Reno. The ranches
Yeah.
were there way back in
But I'm
probably the
talking about
1850s.
having this house out there at the ranch.
Well, I'm not sure if it would fit out of Bartley Ranch. However, it
Well-
would fit in Idlewild Park. There again, it's city domain. It's a public park, open for everybody. There's already a series of memorials, and there's a rose garden down there. There's the California building dating back to the
Well,
27 exposition.
We had to move the WCTU fountain because it was completely abused.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
The fountain was out
there's
there.
problems with that.
But I think Idlewild Park would be an easy move since this structure in this town, if you don't move them, you're going to lose them.
Well, that's true.
I don't think it can stay where it is in situ, where it'd be fantastic, but
it could be fenced off, so it open for, at times.
I think the best possibility for this house in the future, and you always have to look when you save anything, you have to look into the future, like how is this preservation going to work in the future with future people? So this house is just a fantastic museum house. All it needs is period furniture, repainting. Maybe we can reveal some of the original wallpapers even, which are all intact, like an onion. You peel it back, but only so far. And then what do you do with that onion when you got it, basically in its original shape and form? You put it in a public arena where there again, Idlewild Park would be fantastic.
Well, actually,
by the rose garden.
Rancho San Rafael, they lock up at night and they have people that live on premise to safeguard.
I think if you're a citizen of the city of Reno, Nevada, you have to protect your own history. And you enjoy the parks, and you can't abandon the parks to.
Rancho San Rafael is definitely a park. It's just it's just well monitored.
Yeah.
When Idlewild is open, you can show up at 1 o'clock in the morning.
So if you have something, a jewel sitting in a public domain, whether it's county park or city park, you have to protect that. And if you can instill pride with the citizens, the people walking their dogs, the people enjoying the parks will protect the history that you have in those parks, and they'll be your best security team.
Well, we shouldn't.
But you do have to protect it.
We shouldn't trash our recreational areas either. And I've been involved with so many cleanups, it's ridiculous. There's a lot of good people out there, but there's some bad guys.
Yeah. So that's kind of the goal of what we're trying to do with this latest house preservation is make the new owners realize that this is Reno's #1 house. There is nothing that you can actually go back to today.
Yeah.
They tore down Masonic Hall. That was 1872, 73.
Yep.
There's not a whole lot of original fabric left downtown. It's nearly all gone except for maybe 5 buildings.
Well, one way or another, it's damn well worth saving.
Yes,
So I'm not,
yes.
no
So
argument there.
so that'll be our latest
But-
challenge is just, trying to convince our city council, our mayor, city parks, maybe county, state officials that this is something we have to save. We have to save and push it forward and use this as just a simple house museum to show people this is how the pioneers lived.
How incredibly small it was.
It has a huge potential. And there again, as a backdrop for the Rose Garden, if you've ever been to the Rose Garden, in full bloom, it's
spectacular.
pretty nice.
Yeah, it's spectacular.
And it's taken years of volunteers' commitment to keep that thing looking great. And
Yeah.
it has a fence around it, of course.
Have you
so-
seen how many people will pilfer a rose?
Well, people think like, oh, wow, look at all these roses. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna, but I think Idlewild Park would make the most sense for this house as a preservation. And here
Yeah.
again, it's going to take everybody working together: City of Reno, county, state, local folks that just want to make a difference by saving something tangible about their past. And the Historical Society, the HRC, it's going to take every agency to save this house. And that is not an easy thing to accomplish, is getting
Nope.
people working together nowadays. So, but if it could be saved, it would be such a wonderful backdrop for the Rose Garden next to the memorial they have over there, the pool, California building. They even have a baseball park, next door. All of this is in the public domain where all you have to do is walk into this area and experience.
Yeah.
And I know it'll work because we've proven all of this with Bartley Ranch and the little barn buildings. And it's like you had something wonderful, it goes away, and then you bring something nice back, and then you celebrate history by preservation and educating the populace out there that this is what we had all over Reno, but this is the last one. So
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
what it's all about: preservation and pushing things forward.
Well,
Well, thank you. I appreciate you talking about it. I know it's been on
Yeah.
everyone's radar of what's going to happen, and then with the house being purchased.
Well,
So
bottom
We're hop-
line, we agree it should be saved.
Yeah.
But where to
Yeah.
put it, you got to
that's a
consider.
whole other thing.
Yeah, you just,
And then the fundraising that would be involved to be able to move it and install it. So there's a lot but definitely if people are interested, John put, the article that was the oldest house in Reno in our chat here, and keep an eye out. I know there'll be more news about it as well. So
well, you want to move it. Are you fundraising now to go ahead and offset those funds?
Well, we've examined the house, and like I said, it would be wonderful if we could just keep it in situ. But if you've ever seen Herbie Rides Again, the Helen Hayes character protecting the old firehouse in a devastated San Francisco where they were building projects, and this actually did happen in San Francisco in the 1960s. They tore down row upon row of beautiful Victorian stick Victorians on those streets, and they replaced them with these nasty projects, which they're now just thinking, man, those things are ugly. But they were ugly when they built the projects. But
Yeah, we did the same thing here.
so it was short-sightedness on San Francisco's part. But here in Reno, the same thing is happening now, where nobody's saving anything. I mean, we just lost the Masonic Hall. That thing went back, and that was a beautiful building.
Yeah.
And there's so many original buildings. When I think back to Neal's slideshows showing the color and the architecture of each individual building downtown, let alone the beautiful houses that surrounded
Yes.
Reno, they're all gone now. They're all gone and replaced in some cases either with vacant lots or something ugly that is just shut down, vacant, and it's quite sad. What the downtown has become, and it's not really a tourist attraction. So I think Reno is really going to have to wake up and smell the coffee burning, because at some point you got to draw the line. You have to protect what you are most proud of. But if you have nothing to to enjoy or protect down there anymore, then why even go downtown? It's kind of sad. And last time I walked downtown, I remember seeing more people in downtown Bodie than in downtown Reno.
Yeah.
And it's like, what happened here? Did somebody
Yeah.
drop a bomb or something? Where did all the people go? That they've all been pushed out, they're out in the malls and the summit, and they've all been dispersed, but it's very strange. It's very strange. But you study other cities that have true historic districts. Old San Diego, it's fantastic. It's where San Diego began. And what do you got in Old San Diego? You got the original mission. I was recently down in historic LA, and I had never been there, and I've only seen old LA in film noir movies. And there we were, and they have a beautiful historic district of original Los Angeles buildings down there, like the Bradbury, And I actually got to ride the Angel's Flight from one street to the very top end of the town, where I went from the historic district on the actual Angel's Flight, and it only cost $1, up to the modern high glass and steel modern LA. And it was fantastic. And it's like, this is what we should have in downtown Reno. We should have our history back, and then Union Station down there. And it showed me, this is Los Angeles, big old Los Angeles, but this is what they've done. They've preserved their nucleus where LA began. They preserved their railroad station. We still have our Southern Pacific Railroad station downtown, but it is not interpreted. It's not a museum. It's not anything really super interpretive to the point where it even bespeaks. This is where the railroad town of Reno began, not Myron Lakes town, but the railroad town that the Central Pacific laid out. That's ground zero. But to this day, it's a vacant, derelict building, and it doesn't seem to have a future. It's just sitting there for now in limbo.
They have school tours and that in the railroad station going down where we put the fountain.
I mean, the fountain that's a fantastic story that Neal was part of, and I was part of, and it is very close to where it originally existed, So when people come off modern day Amtrak cars today, the first thing they see is the WTCU fountain.
Yeah.
And then they're wondering, what is this thing? And then there's this interpretive wall behind there that I think Neal helped put together, and it shows day one to modern day, and it's a very neat interpretive that you come off the train, your first impression of Reno is this WTCU fountain and then the history wall. And then you go up the stairs to modern Reno and you're like, this is Reno? What is this place? I'd rather go downstairs.
Jack Hirsch's mom donated $500, and Lee from the Historical Society gave me $5,000, and we got $300 from Westerners, and we went ahead and picked up all of the outside slack, including all of those photos that are around there, had them framed and installed without permission. And now the city thinks that the railroad did that, and the railroad thinks the city did it, and Dave Holliker and I did it.
But it's a great thing, though,
I told Bob
it helps
Michelle
preserve
that. He says, well, you lucky, he says, I'm in a class full. I could never got away with that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of great things that are happening in the city, and so we'll see what happens with this. But this has been a great program,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have lots
well,
of
this has been a great program, guys. It's been wonderful, and I'm so glad, Loren, that you were able to be here and talk about Bartley and just kind of what's happening just in the city and just kind of the events. What is how people are trying to preserve things here today. So. But I will throw it back to Amy and want to thank everybody for being here today. And thank you for the Washoe County Libraries, as always, for helping us share High Noon and these great history topics. So back to you, Amy.
Thanks for having us.
It's been such an honor to have hosted this program. Thank you all for joining us. And a heartfelt thanks to Sherilyn Hayes-Zorn with the Nevada Historical Society, Neal Cobb, and Loren Jahn. And John, our Washoe County Library System tech wizard, for making this event possible. Thank you very much, and I hope everyone has a great day.